Let's study the reasons why you think you can't learn faster, or why you think such or such thing is so difficult to learn because you don't have the capacities, you don't have the skills, you're not born talented. Whatever it is, there is a reason, and we are going to see in this video, this is not what you think, and it is actually possible that you learn faster. So what is something I don't like, but that is true about most humans? How most humans learn something new and get outside of their current condition. You have the pain of the perceived action and the pain of the perceived situation. I outline perceived, it is never real, it is what you perceive. When the pain of the perceived pain of the action is superior to the perceived pain of the situation, so somebody has to wake up at 5 a.m. and do push-ups or whatever, and their life situation is not that bad. It's really not great, but nothing is too painful either. They have a job that is boring, but that is okay. In that case, it's never gonna happen for most people, because most people just wait to be in massive pain compared to their situation before doing anything about it. For this reason, many people have trouble getting motivated if they don't have an extreme danger coming into their way. They just do nothing about it, and they usually complain a lot, especially on Twitter, or X, and all those social media platforms. They complain a lot and they like to become forgetful. Oh yeah, I'm such a victim, it is so difficult for me. But they never do anything until the pain of that situation, of their life situation, becomes too tragic, or maybe they're gonna lose their kids, and they're by miracle, they just act upon all the things that they thought they could not act upon. So they tend to wait for a disaster, then they most likely get what they wanted, they learn the thing they were supposed to learn. Once they get fired and there are bills to pay, curiously they find the motivation to learn all the things that they had to learn to get into a new job, for example, and then those people will at some point end up into another comfortable situation that may get boring and not really interesting, but at least comfortable. So they stop learning anything again, and they get back into being bitter, complaining, being arrogant, or just not doing anything with their lives. That is the normal way human beings get out of their situation and learn new things, and I would like to suggest an alternative to finally break out of this vicious cycle. Since doing something new is always scary and uncomfortable anyway, my idea is to be much more intentional with the practice session during which you are going to learn something new, or if it is a sport you are learning, or if it is a new business skill, or any kind of new language skill, if you are learning NLP techniques and stuff like that. Okay, whenever you get into this time chunk on your dashboard, for example, if you know every Wednesday at 4 p.m, for example, this is the time you want to devote to studying those things, be much more intentional about it. What specifically will you study or practice during that small chunk of time? And see it as if you only had 30 minutes. You only have 30 minutes to learn or do something effective and important about this project you're working on, or this thing you are studying. Of course, you may take more than 30 minutes, but the point is, the mind will always clarify what is really important when you reduce the time frame, the perceived allowed time frame allowed to it. So you get into your session, whether it is a sports session or anything, and you ask yourself, what is it that I want to learn today? And I'm only going to focus on this. If it is NLP techniques, okay, today I will study anchoring and nothing else. I don't look at sleight of mouth, I don't look at hypnosis, I don't look at Milton Erickson, I don't look at anything else, just anchoring for 45 minutes. I just study and figure out how could I use that myself. And that's all. Once you have studied that, done, let's go for next week. That way you may even build some frustration because you would have wanted to study more, and that frustration is specifically what will get the motivation going even next week, even the week after that, even the 3 months after that. If you always cram and get much and try to learn everything at the same time in one shot, yeah, that's super stimulating, but what's happening then is that most people just quit after 2 months because they have their brain overloaded and they don't know what to use anymore into all the things they have been learning. So whatever you want to master, understand, figure out, whenever you approach, you open the book or you open your YouTube screen or whatever is your support for learning, just ask yourself, what specifically will you practice or study today? How will you know it was a good session? By a good session, we mean how will you know you have succeeded? And it's not just about external results. So if you want to become a coach or a therapist and you want to, your practice time is actually your work time because you see clients and you want to practice your hypnotic skills with them, for example, then okay, how will you know it was a good session? And my client paying me is not really that much of a great criteria for a good session because they are required to pay anyway. So a better criteria might be, I will use a new technique I have never used before. A new hypnotic induction I have never used before, for example. That way you just build up the anticipation, the enthusiasm of trying new things. That enthusiasm and the dopamine release is what keeps you going on the long term, much more than just willpower and discipline alone. This is much more the dopamine of new things that triggers motivation to keep going. So how specifically are you measuring what you do? Just because I got the results or not? Back in the old pickup artist days, it was, focused more on approaching women rather than will I get the number or will I get her to get it on a date or not? Those are external results, and those are a hit on the self-esteem when they don't get, succeed. Whereas my goal, how do I measure it was a good day, was by me saying hello to 5 women I find attractive. This is a good criteria because that way you build up the momentum and you know you're making progress rather than putting shame on you because somebody rejected you. That is just a terrible way of motivating themselves. So better measuring something internal, something within your control, rather than something that depends on others, depends on external situations you can't really control that much. Whatever you challenge yourself with, and you will need to challenge yourself when you want to learn new things, that challenge needs to be short in time frame. If it is about 5 hours of work every day, you're just not going to do it on the long term. So how can it be short? How can it be stimulating, compelling, and interesting? It has to release some dopamine of wanting to learn new things, of wanting to discover new things, without which you will just not maintain a great quality of effort down the road. Which leads to our next step on how can we adapt the strategy you are using to learn as you go by. Whether you are conscious of this or not, you have a strategy in your mind. By strategy, if you are familiar with NLP strategies, it might be, you see the object, you see in your mind what you want to accomplish, then you physically, kinesthetic, open the book to try to find the answer for how to do this, and then you wonder, ask yourself, how could I apply that? Okay, visual internal, kinesthetic external, auditory internal, that is the bit of the technical NLP here, but that is an example. Whether you know it or not, you have an implied strategy like this for learning things. And if you are the kind of person who is not really efficient, probably your strategy is something like, for example, I tell myself I'm a piece of shit and I won't succeed. That's not even joking. Many people start by this, conditioned by our society, our dream society of success, hustle. That is how so many people condition themselves. I am a low piece of shit, therefore I need to get to work because otherwise I will stay a piece of shit. Auditory, physically kinesthetic, and then producing something miserable because they have conditioned themselves to feel miserable, and then regret and talking to people about how shitty their life is, and then stopping. So the idea here was to identify what is your strategy. When you go in and want to study the skill you are practicing, what goes through your mind, what goes through your body? Do you get a feeling? Do you get some phrases in your head for I can do this, I can't do that, oh, I'm just not competent? If there are any self-critics, what do they say exactly? Is it even your voice or the voice of somebody else who used to criticize you? And what do you see inside your head? And what is your criteria for not putting in more effort? What do you tell yourself every time you stop providing any effort? There must be a self-critic somewhere or a self-judgment somewhere in auditory thinking, without which you would keep going. If all you had in your head were phrases of positive encouragement, you would just not quit only because you had one small bad experience. But most people quit because they just judge themselves way too much before getting the results they were expecting. And back in the day, I used to think consistency was only about that, about keep doing the same thing all the time, never change anything, and at some point you will get great results. Your strategy, the way you are learning, needs to adapt through time, and the biggest breakthroughs always happen through innovation, not solely through repetition. You need to confront your ideas, your models of the world, to new ways of thinking, to other people who think differently, to new ways of doing the thing you used to do, and to how do those people motivate themselves, how do those people measure their progress. If you're the kind of person to stop very early, you will notice pretty easily that the way a master motivates himself has nothing to do with the way you motivate yourself. You may motivate yourself through either aiming for way too high in the distance, something you will just not get before 5 or 10 years, or you may just criticize yourself for not being good enough too fast, whereas a master is somebody who has attached usually their practice to a deeper meaning that is an intrinsic gratification, something they enjoy doing internally or enjoy thinking about internally, rather than the physical results they are getting outside of themselves. If you only motivate yourself through I will get the great body physical to motivate yourself to go to the gym, that's not going to work. One friend of mine who has done the whole bodybuilding thing, and he has went really far with that, for him, it is about, he said, stability of life, or balance of life. I think that was what he said, that going to the gym every day was bringing him such a great balance of life that with that habit maintained, he was productive in many other things. So this had a deeper meaning to him than, oh, I'm gonna get jacked and big in the mirror. Whenever somebody gets to a high level, they attribute a deeper meaning to what they are learning, and that is what will trigger their mind to innovate with new things. Whereas if you're only attached to the physical results you may or may not get, it will just get boring down the road. You will just keep doing the same things and not innovate because it won't be stimulating enough for you. So at the end of any session, when you are studying NLP, music, sports, when you're practicing your craft, if you are a dancer or a juggler or whatever you are developing as a skill, at the end of a session, just reflect, what was the most important thing I learned today? As a slight reminder, a mistake is not a mistake if you have learned something from the experience. Or could we say, it was a good mistake if you learned something. It is only a bad mistake if you didn't learn anything from that experience, that situation. Even if you failed at something, if that failure allowed you to learn something new, it was a good one. If that failure was just the same failure for the last 5 years, and you did not learn anything new from it, then there is something wrong and you need to innovate, therefore change, do something else. Anything. Just alternate your practice, alternate your thinking, confront yourself with other ways of thinking from other mentors. If you only learned from the same mentor for 2-3 years, maybe change, look out for somebody else who has a different way of thinking, up to the point where you notice you make progress again. At the end of any session, reflect on the question, what did I learn that was really important, and what can I focus on as a consequence next time? Therefore, next time I practice or I study this topic, what is the one outcome I need to have in mind for the next session? What result, internal or external as you wish, do I want to get by the end of the next session I practice that into? If it is purely about gratification, I know I will feel good by the end of the next session, then cool. If it is still too challenging because that thing you're learning is linked with many fears, many insecurities, then simplify, okay, just number of actions. I need to practice this thing 10 times. I need to do 5 reps if it is in bodybuilding, stuff like that. Or if it is in music, I need to have rehearsed that one song 10 times or 7 times or 3 times next time I practice. That way it is just simplifying the whole thing, and that makes the process of developing a routine and building discipline easier than by requiring a massive willpower and getting tougher and like hit yourself when you don't succeed. That is just not reliable in the long term, and for those who only rely on pain to motivate themselves, they usually end up really miserable down the road. As a conclusion, learning something new and accelerating your learning is always about removing something, never about adding more. If you think you have 3, 4, 5, 10 things more to learn before you're ready, that means you're just overloading your brain, which is a defense mechanism and which is just procrastination. It is like a smart procrastination, trying to paralyze yourself by quantity of information to not act upon the important things. Acceleration of learning is always going to go through removing things from the skill you are developing instead of adding more knowledge, more things. So what can you remove? Next time you want to study this area, whether it is NLP, music, sports, how to lose weight, whatever, how can you remove things and only focus on the essential? If you only had 30 minutes per week on that, how could you make those the best, the most effective and efficient 30 minutes ever, so that you are guaranteed or really likely to get to the results? What would you do during those 30 minutes anyway? And that is the end of this video. You can download down below in the description if you want manuals about NLP, one about the fundamentals of neuro-linguistic programming, where we talk about how to motivate yourself, how to develop self-confidence, and how to handle a coaching session if you have trouble to help others change by themselves. And we have a manual down below also on sleight of mouth, on how can you be more articulate and convince and persuade people easily whenever you have either a verbal confrontation or any kind of debate or any kind of situation where you want to help again and you don't really know how to suggest things without triggering people's defense mechanisms. You have those down below. It is free, it is for you. Thank you for listening, for watching, and good luck on your day. See you next time.